Calaroga Shark Media.
This is the Jimmy Kimmel-related bonus episode for Monday, September 22nd. The normal Monday episode is earlier in the feed. Hello, I'm Johnny Macc. President Trump was on Fox Sunday Briefing. The president was framed on the left side of your television. On the right side, host Peter Doocy. In between them, a framed photograph on the wall, I guess in the White House, of President George Washington. If you're not familiar with Peter Doocy, he is the son of longtime Fox host Steve Doocy. Peter is 38 years old, and you may know him as the Fox senior White House correspondent. President Trump had this to say.
When I look at Jimmy Kimmel, he had no talent. He was a crazy... I don't know if you remember, I did a Truth before he gave out the Best Picture Award and the Academy Awards. He hosted it. He did a terrible job. I said, what a terrible job he did. He's the worst host in Academy history. And this was during the show, and he saw it. And just before the climax of the whole show, like Best Picture or Best Actor, whatever it was, he read my Truth, saying about how bad he was. And then, I dispute this. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. His wife was begging him not to do it. His agent was begging him not to do it. There's something wrong with the guy. When I look at Fallon, he's the most insecure-looking person I've ever seen on television. And the other one, Colbert, who just got canceled, as you know, just terrible. And it's 100, think of this, it's 100% bad about Trump. They don't say anything good. Even conservatives, somebody said I think in 2 years, 2 or 3 of them, maybe all 3 of them, they never even spoke to a Republican or conservative. It's one of the reasons they do so badly, because they don't realize what's happening. But when you look at these shows and when you look at how untalented they are, I could get people off the street to do a better job than Colbert. He's terrible. He's terrible. And it's not because he says bad things. I don't watch it. Purposely, I don't watch it, but I don't find it enjoyable. I don't find him good. I don't find any of the 3. I could get people off the street. Right now, you and I could walk outside of the beautiful White House, walk down the street. I could look at some people, and they would do better in ratings, and they would have more talent than any of those 3 guys.
It was a busy weekend for the president. He attended the memorial service for Charlie Kirk on Sunday. During his speech at the memorial service for the assassinated Charlie Kirk, the president of the United States had this to say.
Over the last 11 days, we have heard stories of commentators, influencers, and others in our society who greeted his assassination with sick approval, excuses, or even jubilation. You've heard that. So have I. Couldn't believe it. You know the names. They're major losers, by the way. That will be proven out in a short period of time. Some of the very people who call you a hater for using the wrong pronoun were filled with glee at the killing of a father with 2 beautiful young children. And the same commentators who this week are screaming fascism over a canceled late-night TV show where the anchor had no talent and no ratings, last week were implying that Charlie Kirk deserved what happened to him. No side in American politics has a monopoly on disturbed or misguided people. But there's one part of our political community which believes they have a monopoly on truth, goodness, and virtue, and concludes they have also a monopoly on power, thought, and speech. Well, that's not happening anymore. We've turned that corner very quickly.
On the flight home from the memorial for Charlie Kirk, the president of the United States said this aboard Air Force One.
First of all, he said a terrible thing about Charlie, but he also suffers from the fact that he's got no talent and he's got no ratings. A deadly combination.
Also, I believe this is from Air Force One on September 18th. The president is on a plane during this, so I'm assuming it's Air Force One, but the president had this to say.
When you have a network and you have evening shows and all they do is hit Trump, that's all they do. If you go back, I guess they haven't had a conservative on in years or something, somebody said. But when you go back and you take a look, all they do is hit Trump. They're licensed. They're not allowed to do that. They're an arm of the Democrat Party. Thank you, everybody.
Senator Rand Paul, a Republican from Kentucky, said that FCC Chair Brendan Carr's comments threatening to take action against Disney last week were, quote, absolutely inappropriate. Republican Senator Rand Paul said Brendan Carr's got no business weighing in on this, but people have to also realize that despicable comments, you have the right to say them, but you don't have the right to employment. John Oliver on his show Sunday night went in deep about this. I went to pull the clips, but you know how Oliver does his thing? He'll make a point, then he'll tell a joke, then he'll play a clip. And I started to pull it, and it was just going to be way more efficient if I just tell you the words that John Oliver himself said. Oliver on Last Week Tonight. A person getting shot is tragic, and a person getting shot for their ideas is horrifying. That is true no matter what those ideas are, and I recognize that for many, especially those who are targets of some of Kirk's ideas, it's been hard to stay quiet as they see flags lowered to half-staff and claims that he debated things the right way. But setting all of that aside, it does seem like some are now willing to weaponize Kirk's death to do things they've been wanting to do for years, whether it's going after liberal groups, trans people, or the remaining critics in the media, and under some shamelessly flimsy pretext, all of which brings us back to Jimmy Kimmel. Oliver then says the comments that got Kimmel in trouble weren't about Kirk. In fact, Kimmel's first comments about his murder were a post reading, "Can we just for one day agree that it's horrible and monstrous to shoot another human? On behalf of my family, we send love to the Kirks and to all the children, parents, and innocents who fall victim to senseless gun violence." Again, that was a social media post by Jimmy Kimmel. Oliver says, what got Kimmel in trouble was a passing reference on Monday night. Now, I've played that clip several times in the bonus episodes. I won't do it again, but in my opinion, it is clearly a President Trump joke and not a Charlie Kirk joke. Possibly, perhaps, it could have been phrased even more clearly. Now, this next thing from Oliver is interesting. John said, weirdly, I was actually a guest on a show that night, and I didn't even register that comment. And that's only partly because I wasn't really paying attention. And I'm not alone in that. After Kimmel's suspension, many struggle to pick up the offensive line out of his monologue, as YouTube is filled with comments under the video like, I'm still waiting for the offensive part. Now, I mentioned in one of these bonus episodes somewhere, as I was putting together the show one day last week, I saw a Newsweek article that said something along the lines of, people upset about Jimmy Kimmel controversial comments, and I clicked on it to put it into the script for the show. And as I read it, I was like, I thought it was a nothing story. Like, I didn't read it and be like, oh, wow, this is going to be a thing. And I've got a pretty good sense for this is going to be a thing. So I'm with Oliver there. Oliver continued, the point is, Kimmel didn't denigrate Charlie Kirk or make light of his killing. The worst thing you could say is that he appears to have been wrong about the shooter's ideology, which, okay. But he was pointing out that many on the right seem desperate to weaponize Kirk's death, an argument that's aged pretty well given, everything that's happened to Kimmel since. Oliver then went on to call out Nexstar and Sinclair. Oliver says that when one media reporter asked Chairman Carr for a comment, he sent back a smiley emoji and sent a gif of The Office to CNN. Oliver said, look, I like The Office. Who doesn't like The Office? Sure, I could have done without seasons 8 and 9. But if it's on at a hotel, I'm not kicking it out of bed. That said, I want you to run through your friend list in your head right now and pick out the person most likely to text you from The Office. Do you have them in mind? They're your least favorite friend, right? Just be honest. Actually, that's me. Thanks a lot, John Oliver. I am the person who's going to do that. They're the one that invite you to stuff just because you're afraid no one else will show up. They're a third string friend. They're your backup's backup. And if you're thinking there's nothing wrong with office gifts, I'm afraid that person might be you. Okay, busted. More from John Oliver, not because comedians are important, because we are not. If the government can force a network to pull a late-night show off the air and do so in plain view, it could do a bleep of a lot worse. It was fun while it lasted, guys. Whatever happened next, let me say now, it has been the honor of my life to age like a haunted painting before your very eyes. It should be clear to everyone that the First Amendment is absolutely critical in this country. That is something even Brendan Carr knows, given that he once tweeted, free speech is the counterweight. It's the check on government control. This is why censorship is the authoritarian's dream. Oliver then wrapped up. He directly addressed Disney CEO Bob Iger. Hi there, Bob. We haven't met yet, but you probably know me as America's third favorite Zazu. That is the character John Oliver voice in The Lion King. Congratulations on recasting that role, by the way. It was a fun thing to learn about that after the fact. Anyway, one day the history of time we're living through is going to be written, and when it is, I'm not sure it's those in this administration who are even going to come off the worst. Now, don't get me wrong. They're going to come off terribly. But history is always going to remember the cowards who definitely knew better. But still, let things happen, whether it was for money, convenience, or just comfort. And I know this is something of a tough sell, and it could be a bit of anathema to Rick-averse business leaders, but I will say this. If we've learned nothing else from this administration's second term so far, I don't think we have, it's that giving the bully your lunch money doesn't make him go away. It just makes him come back hungrier each time. They're never going to stop. At some point, you're going to have to draw a line. So I'd argue, why not draw it right here? And when they come to you with ridiculous demands, picking fights that you know you could win in court, instead of rolling over, why not stand up and use 4 key words that they don't teach you in business school? Not, okay, you're the boss. Not, whatever you say goes. But instead, the only phrase that can genuinely make a weak bully go away, and that is, F you, make me. I know I did a lot of reading there, and I try not to do that, but just such a major story there. Let me do a couple more things here real quick. At 8:41 a.m. on Monday morning Eastern Time, I Googled the phrase Joe Rogan Kimmel. Nothing came up. And I've seen a lot of people talking about, they should just bring back Strikeforce 5. So let me do some analysis here. This is based on my knowledge, and I use ChatGPT to help me with the math here. So a quick lesson from Professor Macc here. Podcasts are sold on what's called a CPM model. CPM means cost per thousand. And for a live read, for a host read, say a guy in his basement talking about football betting, that kind of thing, it is based off a CPM model. As a podcasting executive, when we model shows, you usually just start with a basic $20 CPM. So what that means is if, let's say this podcast gets 1,000 listeners, how much would I charge for an ad? I would charge $20. If I get, say, 2,000 listeners, I would charge you 2 times the $20 CPM. So an ad would cost $40. If I get 1 million listeners, well then, I'm not doing the show from the basement, I'm doing the show from the French Riviera, but that is not the case. Okay. So I asked ChatGPT, who got back to me and said, here is the full year model for Strikeforce 5 with agents, managers, and lawyers included. I'll use conservative industry typical math where agent, manager, and lawyer each take their percentage from the same commissionable base. Here are the assumptions. I'm assuming Strikeforce 5 would get 1 million downloads per episode. It's just a number I made up. It might get 1,000 downloads. It might get 10 million. But the numbers here are based on 1 million per episode. And I've worked on some pretty good shows. 1 million per episode would be a pretty good number. Do bigger shows do more than that? Sure. For the CPM for this, I didn't use $20. I used $30, saying a premium CPM model, saying, oh, wow, you've got Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel and these other guys, the Strikeforce 5 guys. So I charged a $30 CPM. I'm going to put 6 live reads, host reads per episode, okay? 6. I'm going to have the guys put out 52 episodes per year, so they're going to do an hour a week for a year. So the people that sell the ads for you normally will take around 30%, but for this, I used 10% of the gross, which is a number I've seen with some pretty big shows. I've seen that firsthand, one show doing a deal that gave the commercial seller 10% of the gross. So let's use 10%. Let's say that the Strikeforce 5 guys are getting a really good deal here. And we'll pay their agent 10%, their manager 10%, their lawyer 5%. Okay, those are all the assumptions. 6 commercials at a $30 CPM is $180,000 gross. We'll do that 52 times a year. So in advertising, we're going to generate $9,360,000 or $180,000 per episode. But don't forget, there's 5 guys. I'll cut to the chase here. After all the commissions and all the other math, my napkin sketch math here says Jimmy Kimmel, if he did Strikeforce 5 with the other 4 guys, Jimmy Kimmel would clear about $1.3 million a year, roughly around $25,000 an episode. The same would be true of the other 4 hosts. Now, $1.3 million a year for working an hour once a week where the other 4 hosts are going to help carry the load. Yeah, that's pretty good money. It is not $16 million a year or whatever Kimmel's making hosting a late night show. It's a lot better than Daily Comedy News basement money, I'll tell you that, but it's not 11:35 money. And I just went back in after the edit. I just want to clear up. So that's the number if Jimmy Kimmel did Strikeforce 5. If he did a solo show, he would make around $9 million. Very, very rough math, assuming 1 million downloads. I saw there's talk of another protest outside the Kimmel offices on Monday in Los Angeles. I'll cover that if that becomes news. There's a petition campaign on Move On. As of Sunday afternoon, the petition had garnered around 154,000 signatures demanding ABC and Disney reinstate Kimmel. These petitions usually mean nothing, and I want to remind the boycotters. Well, I'm on Team Kimmel in case that isn't clear, but I want to remind you, tonight, when you're like, oh, it's Monday Night Football, I love Monday Night Football, Buck and Aikman, they're my pals, the Manning brothers, all that. Well, all that airs on ESPN. which is owned by Disney, who are the people that have kicked Kimmel off the air. So you're either boycotting or you're not. I'm fine if you're not. I understand. I'm going to watch Monday Night Football today. I'm still going to watch The Empire Strikes Back. Perhaps I'm a sellout. Perhaps I'm weak. I'm just being honest. You do you. But I just want to tell you, if you're boycotting, you got to boycott. You can't be like, oh, I'm boycotting Disney except Monday Night Football. That's not a boycott. Then you're just on my team, which is fine. Pull up next to me on the couch. And that's your bonus for Monday. Keep checking the feed. I've got a few interviews scheduled. I'm not sure when they're going to be deployed or not. So just keep checking the feed. And, of course, back on Tuesday morning with a quote-unquote normal episode. See you then.